Welcome to Zcast, everyone. I'm Zeus Caraval from ZK Research, and I'm here at VeeamON 2023 inside the Expo Hall, actually with Brand Linch, and you manage the SEs at the companies, right?
I do. I manage the enterprise SEs here at Veeam.
So, quick little bio on yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in this industry a little over 10 years now. I started at EMC, and I was there for about 5 years. Been at Veeam for another 5. Was an enterprise SE, and I moved on to a management role here just a couple years ago.
Oh, well, good for you. That's it's an exciting company to be at now.
It's a great company.
I really enjoyed the keynote this morning. Do you have any thoughts on that, or if not, I'll share mine?
Absolutely. A few thoughts on the keynote, right? So ransomware is top of mind for everybody. It's really 2 things that get talked about in almost every customer meeting I'm in. It's ransomware, and it's how can you save me money, especially in this economy.
And you do both.
And I try to, we certainly try to do both. So it was great to hear 2 actual live examples of how we helped customers recover from ransomware. And we did a session earlier where we talked about several other customers. So when it comes to the combination of how Veeam can help you, you really want to talk about post-breach, right? Breach hits and how can Veeam help? When we talk about the landscape of everything Veeam offers from a recovery perspective, from replicas, from storage snapshots, from backups, recovery to the cloud, I think it became really clear in that keynote everything Veeam can do.
Yeah, when you look at the data that's there, and you hear some of the customer stories, ransomware's, it's everywhere, everyone gets hit, but yet very few companies are actually prepared to handle it. Absolutely. Even though when they know it's coming, right? I interviewed the CEO of the city of New Orleans after, and she was saying that, they kind of knew other organizations in the state got hit, and they were thinking it was going to happen sometime, but even when it did, it's like you're not really ready until it hits. And it seems like this is the ultimate case of measure twice, cut once. If you're prepared for it, if you've got the proper methodology in place, recovery actually isn't all that hard, is it?
Yeah, absolutely, right? And it's the same thing, even before ransomware, a normal disaster like a power outage or a flood or whatever it might be, everybody goes through their normal disaster recovery test, but they kind of do as little as possible to, check all the boxes and report it up to management. But when it comes to ransomware, it's the worst kind of disaster, and you really want to prepare for it. You really want to design for recovery, and we talk a lot about that with Orchestrator and other products we offer.
Yeah, and well, on the data that that Veeam went through from the latest ransomware recovery or latest ransomware report was pretty staggering, right? 60% of companies that are hit with ransomware get hit again. So a lot of that, I think, is due to just you recover bad data. Right?
Absolutely.
Lots of companies try paying for it, and I think it was 20% of companies or something that paid for it actually didn't get their data back.
Absolutely.
So paying for it doesn't guarantee, but I think 40% of companies had a policy that they would just pay for it.
Yep.
Right, and then a bunch don't get their.
Well, something that's really important to keep in mind on that, right, is even if you pay the ransom and they do give you the decrypting algorithms to decrypt your data, oftentimes, that doesn't just happen in a snap of a finger.
Yes.
That decrypting process takes a very long time, and you might be better off, and we hope you're better off with Veeam, of course, recovering your data off something that's fast performing. Really, and that's the whole designing for recovery process, right? Making sure you're recovering off of something that's performant enough for your business. If you're recovering from tape or 5,000 machines off slow spinning disk, and you go to your CTO, CFO and says, hey, great news, we have a clean copy. It's going to take us 4 weeks to recover from tape. That person's next question is going to be, how do I make a Coinbase account and pay this person in Bitcoin? I can't lose 4 weeks of customer data.
Yeah, I find Veeam is a really fascinating company right now because you're a backup and recovery company, but you play a very important role in ransomware recovery, which people think of as a CISO responsibility, right? So you live on the CIO side, but you have a big impact on the CISO side. And I almost think that as companies go through, like all the planning they do to make sure they don't get breached is about prevention. But very few companies actually then prepare for what happens if you do get breached.
Absolutely.
Right? And so if you're gonna, I've talked to companies, to avoid ransomware, they have good anti-phishing tools. They put zero trust in place. They put multi-factor authentication in. They're using AI tools to look at emails, good email security. But then it ends there. Yep. And the worst case scenario is you do suffer a ransomware attack, but then you don't know what to happen. And it seems like what you do should actually be part of good security hygiene.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It absolutely should be. At the end of the day, as our data showed, right, 85% of people unfortunately have been hit by ransomware in the last year. And to your point earlier, some got hit more than once, which is really unfortunate. But it's key that it's a combination of these things, right? You're going to use the Palo Altos and CrowdStrikes for those network detection and intrusion tools. You're going to use your scanning tools on your endpoints to look for anomalies and suspicious activity on those endpoints. But then if something happens, and like we keep saying, it's not if, it's when, you want to make sure you can recover as fast as possible. Certainly I'm biased, but I think Veeam has the best options for fast recovery in the industry.
Yeah, and so what are the keys though? Why is that you have the best recovery tools?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question.
And by the way, recovery is something, as a former CIO myself, I hated that part of backup recovery because it seemed like it never ever worked. And so what do you do that's different?
No, I love that question, right? So at the end of the day, Veeam is the only product in the industry that offers these 4 ways of recovery in the same user interface and the same license and the same product. You cannot buy a version of Veeam that doesn't include all 4, right? And what those 4 are is 1, it's the ability to do true replication. When we talk about replication, we're talking about continuous data protection, hypervisor level replication, failover, failback. It's the ability to recover off of the storage snapshots. We integrate with 96 different primary storage arrays. When you talk about restoring from snapshots, all flash arrays, that's naturally going to be faster than restoring off a spinning disk.
Yes, yeah.
It's easily able to restore to the cloud. What's really key here is when you're hit by an attack, picture a crime scene coming in and taping it off. You can't touch that environment. The cyber insurance companies teams come in, or the legal teams or Fed teams come in, and they do their investigation. So you have to restore somewhere else in parallel. So Veeam makes it really easy to restore to the cloud, to a DR site, whatever that might be. And the last thing, real quick here, is instant recovery. Now I say that, you go, everybody does instant recovery. But the key to Veeam is you can back up anywhere you want. So if you want to design a solution that backs up maybe your mission critical data to an all flash array, 5 to 10% of your environment, you can do that. And now you have something that's going to be super fast performing for your recoveries. So those 4 options, and those 4 options combined in the same user interface is, in what my opinion, really sets Veeam apart.
Yeah, and then from a best practice standpoint, how often do you recommend customers actually test this?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I would say at minimum a quarterly basis. Oftentimes it's once a year, but with the tools that Veeam offers you, right, you could do this on a weekly basis, even a daily basis if you're that paranoid, a healthy paranoia, I would call it.
Yeah, I was talking with one of your executives about this, that it's almost like we should think of Veeam as being almost a preventative tool, right? So if you know, because it's not just ransomware, right? If hurricanes come into a local region, why not go ahead and recover it, move it somewhere else, And so instead of waiting for the disaster to happen, be proactive and actually treat it almost like, you might vMotion a server. You can do it with your entire data set, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The more you can prepare for it, the more you can design for recovery, the better.
Okay, well, so I've heard a lot about Veeam's easy use, right? Are you ready to show me this in a demo?
I would love to.
All right, Brad, well, tell us what we're looking at here.
All right, well, welcome to the Veeam screen if you haven't seen it before. So really what I want us to get in the mindset is, during this, is I want to pretend like we're a hacker right now. I want to pretend like I'm a hacker. I got into your Veeam server. You weren't really following some of our recommended best practices of having MFA enabled, making it, taking Veeam and putting it in its own backup domain. And I unfortunately got into your system. Well, the first thing a hacker is going to do is they're going to come right in here and they're going to try to delete your backups, right? They want to get rid of this. So they're going to come in here and they're going to say, let's go ahead and delete this VM and all its backups from disk. And what you're going to see here is, because I have many VMs in my environment, but this particular job is going to our Linux hardened repository. And what that means is you have no ability to delete this backup if you're on this server until the retention has expired. And as you see here, it gave me that warning that, hey, we're not able to delete this. And then even from here, my next action, there's really 2 forms that hackers can delete your backups. There's this, and the second option is they actually log on to the box itself. Well, we integrate with many different object lock technologies. This is the Linux one, but we integrate with many object storage ones as well. And I'm just going to hop over here. So let's say they somehow got access into your AWS console, where you were sending your primary copies or your secondary backups to. And now they're trying to delete it from here. Well, you'd find that they get the exact same access denied error if they come in here and they just choose to delete this Brad test backup job. And you get this, extra verification of typing and delete. This is what's going to stop a bad hacker. And you'll see here, I'm going to get another access denied. So whether the hacker tries to come in here into Veeam Veeam or go directly to the source itself, it's access denied. And that's what's really key to making sure you have a secure backup. A couple other things though I just want to show are how powerful the monitoring piece of this can be, right? So Veeam goes well beyond just the classic backup and monitoring reporting. And several things that you can do here is, number one, you can look at specific alarms that we have. We have over 300. I'm going to narrow it down in the interest of time here. But you can see here we have an alarm called suspicious incremental backup size. This is going to look for anomalies in the backups themselves.
So that scanned all the data in the backups and it found a handful of things that to Veeam look worth further investigation.
Absolutely. So the scanning piece, we have another layer that'll actually do the scan. This is the ability to do this without any scanning, which is nice because there's no compute resources you have to use.
Got it.
But the scanning process, you're setting me up perfect. I want to get to that as well. So as you'll see here, right, Veeam has the ability to go on a look at a per VM level, and you can see here that it can actually see the services and processes on your VM. What's key about this is that when hackers get in, it's pretty common that they will try to disable services on these machines, right? They're going to disable your AV services,
Sure.
They're going to disable your VSS services, things of that nature.
Anything watching.
And what's nice about this is you can come in here and just find a service here, whichever one, and you can create an alarm that says, hey, let me know if these services get disabled, because they never should be disabled. So just something really powerful you can do. The last piece of this, and to answer your question from before, is that scanning capability, right? So a couple things here. If I go into here, I have the ability to run daily, weekly, quarterly, whatever they might be, tests on my backups and my replicas, things of that nature. And as you can see here, on a per VM basis, I can tell it to run specific pre-canned tests. So I can say, hey, I want you to do an AV scan of this machine, and you see a number of other options that we have within here. And you can, of course, insert your own scripts, but if this is a domain controller, you can look for specific things. If this is a SQL server, you can look for a SQL database, or you can put in something custom. And then what's really powerful about this is, let's say you have enabled it to run those AV scans. We have reports that are more detailed than you can ever hope for, that the managers and directors love, of course, that show you, hey, we ran a ransomware scan. They didn't find any signs of ransomware malware in these backups that we scanned. So really powerful capability that allow you to run these pre-canned tests, and you can do these tests without actually doing the recovery. It won't do an AV scan, but it'll look for things if you even have the proper permissions in place to actually do a recovery or do a failover. Oftentimes you do this recovery, you think everything's set, and you don't even have the proper credentials to log into SQL. Oh. And now you got to run around and figure out what the credentials are.
It's better to find out now than it is during the recovery.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. So anyways, with that, I mean, that kind of gives you the gist. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was easy to use, so that was good to see.
Good to hear.
All right, Brad, well, thanks for the demo, and thanks for the little primer there on all that ransomware data we saw this morning in the keynote. If there's nothing else you want to add, I'm Zeus Caravallo on behalf of Brand Linch, live from VeeamON. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time on another Zcast. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, thank you.